welcome back to the Property Legacy podcast. We are here today in Wigan with the lovely Jason, and we are going to be learning all about the auction process. Something that we've not actually discussed on the podcast as of yet, so we're really excited to be here and getting Jason's expertise on this subject. And we are excited to get going with the episode, so stay tuned and let us know what you think about it in the comments. So, do you want to start by introducing yourself and talking to us about how you got into property in general?
So, I was looking for a new opportunity. So, and Diane, who set up Rutter Green 10 years ago, we were actually friends way before that. We actually met with our partners sort of skiing, so we all got pulled together in a ski school. And then my partner John, and then Mike and Di, we sort of like become friends. So we went skiing every year. And Di said to me, sort of on one of these skiing holidays, I'm going to set up an estate agents. And I was going, oh, that's amazing. Do you know what I mean? So, because I'd been a landlord previously, I said, well, listen, and she said, well, why don't you come and do it? We'll do it together. And I was like, I know I've been a landlord once. I said, but my knowledge of property is not really there. And I'd only just started another job, really. And I said, listen, I don't think it's for me, really. And then Springboard, sort of 10 years later, Di was celebrating their 10th anniversary because they set up in 2015. And there was an opportunity, and I was looking for a new opportunity. Yeah. And then Di said to me, again, we were skiing, and she said, listen, there's an opportunity because one of the team was leaving, but why don't you come and join the fold and come and head up the auction side of things? And I said, well, I love auctions. Do you know what I mean? So that we've all watched the programmes, which we know which ones they are. We all watched them. So it's always intrigued me, and I did sort of understand the process a little bit as well. So I said, okay, so I start on the 1st of April this year.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit new to the sort of property world to a degree, but you know what? It's not a dark art. It's something, actually, you just need to be that sponge and learn and ask questions. I think is a big thing.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of reading. I'd made sure I was up to speed, even before I joined in April. I'd done my sort of research, thought, do you know what? I feel quite comfortable. And I think what I brought to the table, really, from my vast experience in my career, was very much sort of account management and account directors and my marketing background. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of that where my business acumen could navigate those relationships. Because when we get into start talking about the auction side of things, there's quite a lot of relationships to consider, as it were. Yeah. So that's really where my sort of career has been.
I really like the fact though that you are newer in the industry, because so many people think you need to have all of this experience, and a lot of, in any kind of industry that you go into, it's all about life skills and transferable skills from whatever industry you were in beforehand. So if anything, anybody that's watching this, you've been here since April. We're now mid-August, but how much have you, like you literally have soaked it up like a sponge, and how much, and like how confident you feel in this kind of property space? And I think that's really inspiring, because people think, well, I don't have the time, or it's going to take too long, or all of these things. And actually, if you just immerse yourself in something, you want to learn, you're open to be educated, and you also bring other skills that you have built over your lifespan of whatever career you've been in beforehand, then that's pretty much a really good starting point. That's all you really need. You don't need someone to come into somewhere and know everything, or presume they know everything either. It's all about, sometimes it's better to learn how things are done right now than learn how they were done 20 years ago, because there are a lot of people that get very stuck in, well, this is the way it used to be, and actually we need to get with the times, don't we? So,
absolutely.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, I think especially with your marketing background and being in a more corporate space, a lot of agencies, letting agencies, generally are people that never wanted to get into a letting agency or an estate agent, but they wanted some experience in sales, or they wanted to do something to learn about property and things like that. But most estate agents out there have been doing it for a long time and are still stuck in the same ways. They're still trying to put adverts in the paper, even though nobody buys the paper these days. So it's trying to change and looking forwards, especially with the AI revolution coming out. Everything's changing so fast. you need new blood, you need new ideas from other experience as well, which is really good. So what was your actual career before? What did you? Is it just marketing management, or is it were you the guy selling marketing to businesses around Wigan?
I'm home based in Liverpool, so I'm a Scouser, so but I am picking up the accent of course. Everyone has a brew.
Yeah.
You want a brew? So my potted history is always sort of been in the sales environment.
Yeah.
So even from a career wise, and I'll tell you all of it. You might want to enter it, but sort of like went in Top Man. So from a sort of very young age, then went in Max Spielman. The managing director at the time, David Edwards, he took me under his wing, and that's where I become business development and started my marketing experience from that aspect. And they grew Max Spielman from 20 stores when I joined to 150 odd stores, which then I'd evolved with the organisation. I thought now it was time to move. Then I moved to Trinity Mirror and worked for the Liverpool Echo as sponsorship, and that was looking at getting sponsors from all the corporates. And I think the big thing that I learned from that sort of career, and I think that's the most important thing, is put yourself in the shoes of the person you're trying to either sell to or the person who is buying. I'm sorry, not buying. The person who you're trying to sell to, but also it's then their market as well.
Yeah.
So it's the person who's trying. I'll repeat that. So the biggest thing is putting yourself in the shoes of the person who's going to buy your product. That's the big thing. Now, obviously, that company that is then trying to sell that product, you need to put your feet in their shoes as well. So it's actually thinking, okay, what's the customer after and what's the corporate after, and what do they both want to achieve? And if you can actually get that, which is quite a fine art, you've actually got it, because you understand the journey and what that corporate company is trying to sell to that actual customer.
Yeah.
And from a sponsorship perspective and marketing, it has put those hats on. So, and do you know what? In the property game, it's absolutely no different. It's absolutely different, because you've got to think about the person who's the eyeballs, the viewer, whether that's the investor, whether it's a buyer, whether that's the vendor, the seller, doesn't matter. You've got to try and embrace which route they're coming from and what they want to achieve. And then you're almost the middle person to think, well, actually, this is how we're going to achieve it, and we can all achieve X, Y, Z. Whether that's getting the best sale, the right person to actually buy a property as well. Especially I suppose that's more about the private treaty and the typical market. But the same applies a little bit to the auctions, really, because not every property is right for a set of people.
No.
Really, I can't say. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
So from the auction point of view, because I think that's an area that property investors, especially people just starting out and people that have only done residential property, the auction space looks really attractive with really low prices, and we try to let everybody know that that's just a starting point, and they hope it's going to go a lot higher than that. But it's that marketing to try and get people in, to get the eyes in the room to get that going. So from your point of view, with you being an independent auction, how does that work, and what should we be looking for and watching out for?
Yeah, I think because we are independent, we're not one of the big sort of players in the field. It gives us that luxury to actually be more agile. And it also gives us the luxury to actually nurture people through the actual process, because there are a lot of things that can catch people out. And what we want to try and do is educate people, whether that's a first-time buyer, whether that's a first-time investor. And I get lots of people who actually will come and have a conversation, say, oh, they're interested in buying this, or they'll register, and then I'll phone them back, and they say, oh, and I find out really from, okay, what is it you're looking for? What's your position at the minute? Are you a first-time buyer, or are you wanting to be an investor, or have you got a portfolio already? And that's really important to understand to a degree. But even those seasoned investors, there's some of them that actually are quite coy about buying auction properties. And I sort of get it, I do sort of get it. But even with anybody, I go, right, do you understand the process? And then I'll take that time to actually invest and explain what the actual process is. And I think the biggest thing when you're actually looking at the process is making sure that they're aware of the fees that are there. making sure that people are aware that actually if they do not follow through the process, that they've got the 28 days, which is the actual unconditional sort of method, or the 56 days of conditional method, which I'll explain a bit more if you want me to.
Yeah.
So if they fall out foul of that, well then they will lose their deposit, which is typically 10%, and also they will lose their reservation fee. So there's a big commitment. But actually, by making sure that people are educated and understand the process, and also use the right people out there, i.e. solicitors, for example, that's going to be really important. So we've even had people where actually they've gone to a solicitor, and then sort of 4 weeks in, and we're actually on a conditional sort of auction method, so they've got 56 days, and they come back to us going, oh, my sister will come back, we can't do it in the time frame. We're like, whoa, hang on a minute. So, and even though we've sort of preempted and pre-warned them, as it were. So, but there are solicitors who are geared up to doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't cost any more.
No.
It's very similar, but they're just geared up to actually sit because of the speed. And that's the beauty about auctions, which I'm sure we'll touch on, about what are the benefits of auctions. Speed is absolutely key to the actual whole process, because again, going through the sort of like, if it is on the open market or private treaty, you have got that 6 months, 8 months maybe, and then 40, as we know, 40% of those properties or chains can break.
Yeah.
And then you start all again. You know, so I think that's a really thing, using the like legal firm, and again, there's lots of them out there, just make sure you get the right one, really, you can't. I think the other big thing that I explain to the actual, especially the first time investors more so, is that there's the legal pack, and as an exercise, I said, listen, even though this property might not be for you for whatever reason, I said, just pick a property, download the legal pack and read it.
Yeah.
Read what's in there, understand it. And the big one is the special conditions. It's the special conditions where there will be a commitment that the vendor has stipulated what the buyer is going to commit to. So, and some of those things could be that they pay their legal fees, or 50% of them is typically the industry standard. The other thing that has happened from stories I've heard, where actually, if there's a tenant in the actual property, so in the actual legal pack, one of the things that can happen is that the vendor can stipulate that if there's rent arrears, that the vendor can say, well, actually, the new buyer is going to actually pay for those rent arrears. And I know this has happened where in the actual special conditions, the rent arrears was £8,000.
Yeah.
So on the fall of that hammer, that buyer is committed. And if they've not read the special conditions, or they've not got a solicitor to read the special conditions and outline that, unfortunately, it's legal terms, it's a process, they have to pay that on top of everything else.
And also there isn't a great deal of time to get a survey done, or to actually get that proper look at on the property. So you can come unstuck, which is why a lot of the times people are advised only do that when you've got 100% of the cash available and you've got experience. But if you get the proper advice from your solicitor and you get the proper knowledge of how the process works, then you can actually do this from the very first property and stand to make those profits and stand to make those low cost purchases from the word go. It's just gearing yourself up and making sure you understand what's going on.
It's all about preparation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the two things that you mentioned there, with obviously the survey side of things, and this is the beauty about the sort of the unconditional and the conditional. So the unconditional is the 28 days, the conditional is the 56 days. So the actual buyer can actually speak to the auction house and say, I'm going to be getting this through finance, buy-to-let, bridging, whatever it might be. So then a surveyor needs to go in, potentially, to actually go and make sure, well, the mortgage company will insist on that. But because it's 56 days, that's loads of time. That's plenty of time. And again, if you've done your preparation, that you've got a surveyor ready to do that. In fact, if you're really keen and you're thinking, I'm going to get that property because I want it, well, and if you want to commit to it, pay for the surveyor to do it. It might be an investment of money that you paid out in advance. You may not win the bidding war, but you may win the good war. It all depends how much you want that building and that property and what you see in there, and because you always have that value. And I think, do you know what, sometimes you need to set aside money that you think, okay, I may lose this, but actually that's going to save you potentially thousands. Because even before because there's no front cost to commit to actually doing an auction. So if you do the survey, think, oh, actually there's things there I didn't expect to see. Even being able to see it, you think, right, okay, I'll step away. So that, whatever amounts of money, saves money.
Yeah, but it's on the opposite side of that, when people are going for normal residential properties, it's not actually theirs until you exchange contracts. So people can pull out, it can fall to pieces. So that's just the same as it is at an auction. You're going to put money out for surveyors, you're going to put money out for your mortgage arrangement, you're going to put money out on your solicitors.
Yeah.
Do all of that, and if you're buying a property that's a repossession, then they don't take it off the market at all until you exchange. So you can lose that on the very last day before you exchange contracts. So in that sense, it's no real difference to an auction other than you're putting, you're kind of looking at doing surveys and stuff beforehand, which you might not get on the day, you might not get it, but at the end of the day, at least you've got that done and you've got that experience and you've got that kind of investment in yourself as well. Because all investing has risk. Whether it's shares, whether it's gold, whatever it is, it's risk. And not everything works out. And you've got to be prepared for that. And it's like being an entrepreneur. You don't give up until you're completely dead and buried. You just keep going. You will get that wonderful business going, or you'll get that investment going. And a lot of what puts a lot of investors off is the hard work of hitting these roadblocks, hitting these no's, and all this kind of stuff. So where we can find service providers like yourselves that can actually explain and educate, then it's ideal for everybody to kind of get on and listen to.
Yeah, and it's knowing your options as well. Because I think one of the points, again, there's a market value, and then also I think the deposit are two things that to be mindful about. Because typically a auction property will be 15 to 20%. The benchmark's 15%. Sort of like below market value.
Yeah.
So you know that you're going to get a bargain to a degree, but you've got to be mindful about the actual fees, the reservation fees, and mindful about you're paying for 50% of the conveyance costs. Again, it's to get them then. So there is that sort of bargain to be had. The other aspect about the deposit is actually you can go to the actual sort of vendor or the auction house to ask the vendor, rather than doing 10%, do 5%. 10% is the industry standard, but again, it depends what your position is. So if you are doing a buy-to-let, and it's interesting that 5% is also, from the mortgage company's perspective, that is received from the solicitor for the hammer, is classed, or the 10%, whichever it is actually part of the mortgage. So if you need a 10% deposit, the mortgage company will class that 10% auction deposit as the same. So you don't have to get the two 10%. Does that make sense? Yeah. Which I think is quite a key understanding to think, well, actually, you're not having to find two lots of 10%. It's not just one. Sorry.
It's okay. From a very beginner perspective, why would a house go to auction and not go out for sale?
It's a really good question. Really good question.
Because this is something I genuinely do not know the answer to. From my point of view, can people choose to put it for auction and not up for sale ever? Is it because they've been up for sale and nothing's happening? Is it because of probate? What are the actual reasons and differences why a house would be put to auction?
I was going to say keep going because you're ticking all boxes. That's absolutely spot on. I think and the other aspect is about motivation.
Yeah.
The vendor is in a position of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And it's the vendor goes, well, actually, I need to sell this quickly. And it could be because they may be in a financial difficulty. That does happen. But sometimes, an example, so there's a gentleman that we've worked with, they've lost a loved one, and then they had a tenant in the property, and then the tenant wasn't paying the bills or the rent, and then they're still paying the mortgage because there was still mortgage on it. Then the bank knew there was mortgage on it, and they knew the position about things, but it's still racking up and devaluing the actual sort of overall estate. So really, what they don't want to do, be in a position to do it on the open market private treaty, is then sort of go, okay, let's get into this 6 month to 8 month chain, because it then does get dilapidated over the winter, you need to keep heated, to keep warm. So there's all sort of factors that people need to think about, to think, do you know what, I need to sell this within the 28 days or 56 days.
Right.
So that is about the motivation, and for them, the devaluing of the estate could be about 30 grand. The market value could be less 30 grand.
Yeah.
So do you know what's better? Just take the hit, because you know you're going to lose 30 grand anyway. But at least it gets over. And I think especially when somebody has lost a loved one, again, sometimes there is that emotional tie. People don't want to let go, but there's sometimes people want to move on.
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit, and you're thinking, right, okay, not to forget that person they loved, but they're thinking they know that person want to go. Do you know what? They want to spread the love with the estate that they're sharing with their family.
Yeah, it's nice closure as well, I think. Personally, I know people that have held on to, like, parents that they've lost their homes for years, and what are we holding on to it for? Like, what, it could be a home for somebody else, and it's that thing of, like, it isn't about these things that cost money, it's more about the sentiments and things. So yeah, I think obviously in that case, in my head, a lot of houses that go to auction are for scenarios like that, but I wasn't sure whether people get to a point where they've had it on the market and they just go, oh, do you know what, whack it on auction. Does that happen?
Yeah. It does.
It's a big thing that a lot of people don't really think about, is how long it's going to take. Obviously, there are some estate agents out there that will give higher values when they value a property, just so that they will win that listing. And then you see it over the next 3 months, 6 months, just going down and down and down. But once it's on Rightmove, and with all the software that's out there that tracks who it's been with and what it's been up for, how many times it's been subject to contracts and all that kind of stuff, that just gives a lot of people ammunition to offer prices a lot lower than you want.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take it to auction, yes, it's on a guide price, and it does put a certain amount of people off. But what it also means is the people in that auction are serious about buying your property.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got everything, all the ducks in a row, they're all ready to go, and the chances are you will sell and get it done over and done quickly. Because what we don't want people to do, which I think a lot of accidental landlords get stuck with, is there'll be a death in the family, parents' house or grandparents' house, and there's all that emotion wrapped around that house, remembering growing up there. If they then rent that out and it gets trashed, that's big no-nos.
Yeah.
You can't, to be an investor, you can't be emotionally involved with the property, because there are risks and because things can happen that will obviously change the way your view of people and the general way of investing.
You've got to be realistic for people, and I think some people will get that shiny penny thing, won't they, of like, oh well, it's a higher price, we're going to sell it for that, and then it just comes like months worth of disappointment and frustration and questions and, oh my god, why have we not even had any viewings? And then all the excitement of we're selling the house soon starts to not be excitement anymore, because it's just taking so much longer, because they've given them a completely unachievable price that no one is actually going to buy. So it's better to be realistic about it and actually have a better result and a faster result for somebody that wants to sell.
And certainly that's on the open market, the private treaty. There's that experience. Fortunately, in most cases in the auction bit, it doesn't, because again, we sort of like, from a Rutter Green perspective, it's go, well, it's sometimes we go, well, actually it's worth £100,000, and the actual vendors go in, oh, I thought it'd be worth a bit more than that, and you go, well, it has got a tenant in, the condition's not great. I said, there's no reason, the tenant's fantastic, whatever, but it is just managing expectations. And I think the other thing is actually knowing specific areas in the country, because we cover England and Wales. We can put a board up in England and Wales. We can get viewings in England and Wales. We obviously do Scotland and Northern Ireland, different regimes, but we can cover really that vast area. But actually knowing some of those areas, like the North East, for example, there's parts of their areas where actually the houses are depreciated, not appreciated. And some people who've actually maybe bought investments previously think, oh, actually, the house has gone up. Well, if you actually look at the stats that are telling you, they've either flatlined and that what they bought 10 years ago for, let's say, 85,000 is still 85,000. And then bearing in mind, at auction, because this person wants to sell quickly, it's got to be below market value. So actually, then they go into a little bit of negative equity if they've not paid off the mortgage. Yeah. So we just guide people, and all we can do is an honest appraisal and think this is where we're at, managing expectations, and some of those conversations go, well, that's not what I wanted. I said, well, I can't give you the magic sort of like, well, you're going to get 20,000 more profit, because that's not the case. And then it's their decision whether they come with an auction property with us or whoever or not. So.
Yeah. So as a homeowner wanting to buy a house that's on auction, what is the best advice? What do they need to know? What are the essential things that they need to prepare beforehand? So if this is someone's first time doing it, and we want to provide them with as much education as possible around it, what is the best advice that you can give?
Sure. Again, this is all part of the preparation side of things. So what we will do, we'll have that conversation about the sort of the special conditions and look at the legal pack, make sure that the solicitor has looked at it, they've looked at it. The next step then is actually they will have registered. Once they want to take it a step further and become part of the bidding process, then what we will do as an auction house, we actually ask for proof of funds, whether that's a mortgage in principle or whether that's actually to say the money in the bank. Again, because what we don't want to be in the process, and it's not happened to my knowledge with Rutter Green, but what we don't want to happen is that the hammer goes down and then someone else goes, oh, I haven't got the funds, and then they lose the deposit and reservation fee. So that's quite important, and that's quite personal information to a degree. The other thing is we actually then take them through the anti-money laundering checks. So again, it's being prepared to actually get that process done. And what we would need for that then is a driver license or maybe a council tax bill or utility bill. So it's just getting those ducks in the row that on the day of then becomes bidding is then that then it opens up, they then bid, and then we as an auction house, we do it on a set day. We do it twice a month, and we do it for 30 minutes. There are other auction houses who do it for 4 or 5 days, which, from what I understand from people who have spoken to, go, oh, it's a bit like they're on the knife edge going, how long is this going to take? So doing it actually in 30 minutes, because we've done all that preparation, then we can it's moving things faster going forward. So from a buyer's view, that's what we were going through. From a vendor's view, is again what they want to know is really in advance is how many people may have viewed the property, and we get feedback. So we get, obviously, because we cover the England and Wales, we use an outside organisation to give us that and get that feedback. So we'll give that to the vendor as well, and then I typically will set up a WhatsApp group, whether it's with them as an individual, whether it's a family, so they're then up to speed with all the communication up until the actual day of the auction. And then once the hammer goes down, then actually that's the exchange, really. And then typically the signatures goes to the buyer first, they sign, and then the actual vendor, they sign. The monies will be in, and then the reservation fee is obviously kept, and then we actually pay the 10% deposit, or if it's 5%, to the solicitor on the same day. And then there's the 28 day or 56 day to completion.
So, from somebody who wants to buy and they see the guide price, what information can they glean from that as what would likely be the price it will go for? Because that's the bit that I know there's people out there saying, well, if you see a guide price, it's usually that's 90% of the reservation, or it's usually 90% of what they want. But obviously, if there's two years battling for something, it could go for a hell of a lot more. But it's just when you're looking for properties and you're thinking, well, actually, it's up for 90k guide price. What will that go for, and how can you gauge that?
It's a really good question, and we are constricted within the sort of like the advertisement standards agency. That's got to be within 10%. So it'll be within that margin. So typically that would be the top would be then 100,000.
Yeah.
That's where your reservation price will be. but the actual vendor may have said, well, do you know what, I don't mind it going for 95. And I'll say from a vendor's viewpoint, the lower that you actually put the price, then the more excitement that creates.
Yeah.
The more excitement that creates, the more bidders come online, the more bidders maybe get carried away with it, and then you actually get a little bit more than the 95 or certainly the 100. So from that perspective, and in some ways we can actually tell the vendors how many people have registered and so forth, so they know there's a pool of people who are ready to sort of get part of that bidding war, and then off they go. Go and do it. So, and the hope is that obviously they will get something where it could actually go to market value to a degree.
In terms of auctions as well, I know obviously a lot of it is online. Is there still auctions that happen in person? Has it moved a lot into the digital age, especially after things like COVID and stuff like that? Is it a different experience in person or online, or is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, I've been to property auctions in person. It's totally different because the vibe of the room is totally different. I quite like that vibe, but maybe it's an age thing, I don't know.
It's giving me like David Dickinson bargain hunt sort of thing.
Well, no, but homes doesn't have that.
It's the town.
Yeah,
It's the town.
yeah.
But the majority is going towards now digital.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a cost saving, and I think the other aspect of that is that again, the terms and conditions are open for everyone to read.
Yeah.
And it's important from the vendor's side and the buyer's side that they understand what they're signing up for, and you know. And yet they can do that on a piece of paper in an auction room, and they can do it online. It's just, it takes time to do that. And I personally have the luxury of going, well, I want to take that away and read it before I sign up to anything, which I think is quite important.
So it's more along the lines of if you're in the States, you'd hire a realtor to go and find your properties and kind of help you get you across the line. Is that something that, from an auction point of view, even if somebody needed support and to a different auction, they could get that kind of support from yourselves?
But it's interesting. Again, I think the auctions is an unknown to a lot of people. Lots of people. And because it's unknown, people are quite wary of doing it because like, oh no, that's in the too hard to do box. And again, I see my role as trying to educate people and knowing it. And as an example, and I'm sure they won't mind me using it because because they had what in their words a fab experience of doing it. So they were buying this property, and the whole family had not known that the auction process, but they were using mum's money to do this because of the situation that was in. So I actually had a conversation with the buyer, I had a conversation with the sister-in-law, I had a conversation with mum, and then a conversation with the other brother, and then I had a conversation with sister-in-law and mum, and then another conversation with all three of them and all four of them. And do you know what, it doesn't matter because I think as long as they're understanding what the process is, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And they actually got a really, really good deal.
Amazing.
They got an absolutely good deal. So they were really pleased when the auction took place that they felt confident enough to be part of the bidding process, which they did.
Yeah.
And then they were able to buy that property. And they may not have won it, but they were nervous because this was mum's money that they were using. But do you know what? It's a brilliant way of investing for people and gifting stuff as well and getting involved. And the person who's they'd been on the housing market previously, but circumstances changed, so they were renting, and then they were actually got they got Section 21, and then so they were like, oh right, I need to find somewhere, and then they seen this property and it just ticked all anyway. So it was interesting going through that to make sure. If there's one person involved, make sure everyone is aware and knows that really helped. So from the Liverpool Echo, then I worked for Charities Trust, which was a charity bank, but that was dealing with all the corporates, sort of like the blue chips, and I was account director and marketing for them. And then I worked for a benevolent fund and charity. So I've got a lot of charity knowledge, commercial knowledge. So it's a real mix of a career is what I've got really. So.
Amazing.
Thank you. I'm just trying to think of anything else. The only thing that I did sort of thought, I don't know whether it covered it off, so because the relationships, because what you've got to try and do is balance the relationship, because I'm talking to the buyers, I'm talking to the vendors, but there's another party potentially involved, which is actually the solicitors, possibly.
Right, okay.
So, and I think the big thing for me, if solicitors who may be one of our referral partners, they may say, actually, there's a property here that they've tried to sell, it's not selling. We've told the family about what the options are. They've decided to go to auction. And from a referral partner side, I'd want to do this. If I'm giving my client over to somebody else, I want gold standard service, end of story. And I reassure really our referral partners that that's what they're going to get. And I think that's really key because, again, it's given the family the knowledge, the options, you know, and speaking plainly to a degree. Because I think when people start talking in this property world, if you start talking about all the acronyms that are in there, I'm not going to name all the like EPCs and all the rest of it, Section 21s, you know, it can be a bit confusing. So you've got to have that plain language conversation.
Yeah, and I think even with solicitors, they love to use solicitor talk and send you letters that are gobbledygook, and you know you just can't understand them. Which is where ChatGPT comes in really handy. Take a photograph of it and ask it to explain it in plain English is great. But so it's bridging that gap and getting that out there because let's face it, we're not all solicitors, we're not all accountants. We need to understand, and that's just being able to explain it in plain English is a skill in itself.
Yeah, and it's the relationship building as well because going back to talking about that whole communication side of things. You forever build up that trust factor, and if you do incredible work with one person, they'll tell other people, and that means more people can come to you and have that incredible experience, and that is it's really important in whatever business that you're in. Our reputation is it's something that we should be really proud of, and we should be making sure we're becoming these recommended people. So those skills can definitely help you with all those kind of elements in what you do as well.
It's actually got to be a fair playing field, really.
Yeah.
Make sure people are making those educated sort of decisions.
Absolutely, and it's not like from what I've experienced just from coming into your workplace this morning, it's not like super salesy. It is just normal chats, normal people. Let's me explain. And that really does go far. I was talking about when people, they use all these acronyms and terms and stuff. If you're confusing people, they're not going to feel comfortable. Yeah. And they'll get to a point where they daren't even ask the question because it's so awkward because they've misunderstood maybe 4 or 5 things you've said and you're only 10 minutes in. So it's not patronising, it's just explaining things to people and asking the right questions and saying, do you need to know more information about this, or let me know, tell me what you've already looked into and things like that. And actually, when you give people the right help with the right approach as well, and you speak to them on a human-to-human basis, that always works so much better than having this sales pitch ready. And you can spot people from a mile off, can't you? Sometimes you think, oh my God, do not speak to me.
But it's unfortunately a lot of estate agents are viewed on the same level as a second-hand car dealer. And everywhere else in the world, Australia, America, Canada, it's actually quite a highly held position to be a broker. It's just something we need to change in the UK to get that up there. But yeah, unfortunately, there is that perceived kind of level in the UK, and it needs to change really to get that trust back there. But I think that's more along the lines with, hopefully we'll get more training, we'll get more qualifications required to become an estate agent, because you can actually start an estate agent with no qualifications at all. Or experience. So it's all that kind of stuff that needs to change. But by having lots of companies like this one that puts everything forward in the right way, in the right manner, then you'll get that trust no matter what.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's been interesting, my journey, obviously starting from April, and working with our referral partners, whether that's solicitors, accountants, receivers, just those general conversations that actually I want to work with people who've got the very similar value system to us. Yeah. And what I love, Holden's is conveyance surveyors rather. And we met the other week and thinking, do you know what? They're just a family business like us. Yeah. And you just feel the vibe in the room. You just know they're the right people to work with. And I think by actually doing that, because when you then take a customer on a journey and they're asking for recommendations, you go, well, actually, there's these and these. You're recommending them, like I said before, the gold standard sort of supplies that are going to give that not warm, nice, fuzzy, but the genuine sort of like
Yeah.
information that is going to help them make that informed decision. And I think because of my career path, I see this as a challenge that, I think there is a perception within the estate agency world, the property world, that it's all a bit distrustful. But again, I think it's working with the right people, conveying the right message, and that authenticity will hopefully blow that sort of like reputation out the window. And it's just doing things differently. And I think it's then becoming that choice matter for the individuals, thinking we then are the estate agents of choice in Wigan, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the same with landlords and tenants though. And I have this conversation at a lot of property networking events. There are some people that villainise landlords, there are some people that villainise tenants. There are good and bad tenants and good landlords.
Absolutely.
And it's about finding the right ones, and also again finding the trusted ones and the ones that people have good experiences with. So if somebody wanted to work with you or get in contact with you, then what's the best way for them to do that, and what's the best way that you can help people in terms of auctions and anything property related?
Sure. We've got a pack that we can send, whether that's to buyers or that's to sellers, so we can send information out. And our website is www.ruttergreen, R-U-T-T-E-R, green.co.uk. My email address is jason@ruttergreen.co.uk. But I'm always happy to take a phone call, and I think, dare I say this, sorry Alice, but the younger generation, they don't really like speaking on the phones, but I'm like, just give me a call and talk it through really, because sometimes it's a bit complicated. Now if it starts on a WhatsApp message, that's fine, but it will then gravitate to me, maybe a conversation. But my number's 07902 584 824. I always repeat it twice because people go, oh, what is that again? So it's 07902 584 824. Maybe it's a bit me being a bit old school, I don't know. But look on our website or speak to any of the team. Again, they'll be able to help really in that sense. So, but we'll give people the time.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thank you very much for joining us for this week's podcast. If you want to hear more about our other videos and what we're doing, have a look at the information below. You'll see Jason's details and Rutter Green's details as well. If you want to follow us, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcast. So we're on YouTube with our audio and video podcast. And if you want to get in touch with us, contact us through the propertylegacypodcast.co.uk website, and we can then either come and see you, or you can come and learn all about us and how we can help you get on in the future.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jason.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Steve, for the actual opportunity to come talk about property auctions. It's been a real pleasure to share my knowledge, and hopefully everybody out there will actually have learned something new as well. So thank you guys.
Amazing.